Move. Next item.
Item number 17 comes from the Committee on Public Works, over which Chairman Burgess was presiding as acting chairman. 17, resolution approving amendment number 1 to the contract between Shelby County Government and Kimley Horner and Associates, Inc. for the Wolf River Greenway National Disaster Resilience Grant Design Project. This item requires the expenditure of FY 2017 federal grant funds in the amount of $1,354,500 for a total contract amount of $1,449,500. Sponsored by Commissioner Van Turner, sent down without recommendation on April 12, 2017 committee meeting.
I got a move by Commissioner Reeves, second by Commissioner Schaefer, and I was at that committee, and it was sent down with without recommendation. But before we go to the board, we have one person who wants to speak on this item, which is John Jackson III. Mr. Jackson. And Ms. Banks. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
2 minutes, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. First of all, to Mayor Luttrell, Shelby County Commission, and people here today, I'd like to talk about 3 topics, please. One is the history of the process that has taken place regarding the resilience grant, the process utilized by Shelby County government, and what are we requesting as Small Planet Works and JPA in a joint venture to possibly be on the teams that have been selected for this. 2013, the quick history. The Shelby County government was awarded the green print, $2.6 million. Complaint was filed regarding no Section 3 businesses. In 2014, HUD sent out what they call a technical correction notice of funding. That basically stated that all entities who receive money from HUD over a $200,000 contract are required to have Section 3 business included. That was already a law done back in 1968. Shelby County was given a letter or sent to a letter of June the 22nd, 2015 to apply for funds relative to mitigation of flooding areas that took place in 2011. Shelby County decided to apply for that grant and was originally and has been awarded $60-some million. 3 communities, South Creek, Wolf River Greenway, and Big Creek. In the application process, Shelby County brought on 3 consultants, Sasaki, Barge Wagner, Sumner Cannon, and Kimberly Horn, to assist them in developing the application that was a response to the notice of funding. In that, they moved $1 million from the professional services line item in the budget to pay for those services and moved it to another category. That was presented to you as commissioners, saying that local LOSB would be used as a process for inclusion of minorities and others in this community, which is the process that Shelby County uses. When Shelby County also was awarded this grant of $60 million, they issued another RFP and an RFQ. That RFQ was for firms to develop mitigation plans relative to that $60 million grant. According to Shelby County Purchasing Office, no entities that had submitted RFPs have been selected at this time.
Mr. Jackson, can you wrap it up? Your time is gone over.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. Put Ms. Banks.
So based on that factor, when those contracts were not awarded, although contracts were awarded early on to the other 3 firms I mentioned to help Shelby County put together that plan to respond to the HUD RFQ, those particular entities now have been given amendments to their original contracts. Please bear in mind that any time money is used through HUD and a Section 3 requirement is in place, it mandates, because it's federal funds, that those funds utilize Section 3 business. In the amendments issued to those 3 entities in the very beginning, there were no requirements for Section 3. Based on that fact, a complaint has been filed and also noted with you all and in committee and with entities in Shelby County that should have been included. Since then, that has been adjusted to some of those. Very simply, what are we asking today? We're asking that the resolutions you have in front of you and the amendments to those 3 contracts of Sasaki, Kimberly Horn, and Barge Wagner Sumner Cannon require Section 3. We would like that language placed in those amendments. We think very clearly that by doing that, the county has done 3 things. 1, you have done what HUD has asked you to do, which is the law. Number 2, you have given opportunities to Section 3 businesses who currently right now, at minimal best, are not having opportunities to perform on these contracts. Number 3, we just think it's the right thing to do. You all just finished a very large disparity study. It's been proven that your LOSB program has not been as successful as it should be. This Section 3 inclusion in those amendments and contracts will ensure at least the opportunity for low-income individuals who own businesses or those who employ 30% of their permanent employees an opportunity to participate. You may say, what's in it for Small Planet Works and JPA? I'll be very candid with you. An opportunity to work on a project here in this community, which we are well qualified for. JPA with 26 years of experience in landscape architecture, planning, and urban design. Small Planet Works with over 20 years of experience in what they do. Very simple. We're asking for an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you, Ms. Banks. Commissioner Turner.
I think that's a modest request. If we're going to be serious about our MWBE and LOSB efforts, then we have to put it into action. My question to you, sir, if you can come up.
Come back up, Mr.
If we add that these resolutions need Section 3 involvement, does that automatically include your firm, or that at least gives you an opportunity to bid on it, or what's the next step?
It is the latter. It automatically forces those three entities to include Section 3 businesses in their contracts, which would then give us an opportunity to be able to be looked at and look at our credentials to see if we can help them. So it's the latter.
I think that's even more honorable, if you will, in that this may not necessarily be an opportunity for you. Someone else may perhaps get the Section 3 hire, but what you're saying is you want a level playing field. It's not just for me, but I want this open to not only my firm, and if I get it, good, but if not, at least this is opened up and other companies will have the opportunity. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, sir.
Right. So this is not a self-serving, selfish act on your behalf. You just want to see this this effort that we're undertaking succeed as it relates to LOSB and MWB participation. Would that be accurate, sir?
Yes, sir, that would be.
Well, Commissioners, I would move to include this Section 3 language in the resolution at the appropriate time. Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner, is that a?
That's an actual motion.
Okay.
If it's appropriate.
Second by Commissioner Bailey.
Yeah.
Any objection on that made by Commissioner Turner? Yes, sir.
I have to ask a question of legal before I can deny it.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, Commissioner Reeves.
Mr. Commissioner, Tom Davis, Shelby County Public Works Director. The contract that's before you is an amendment, and in that amended contract, it requires each of these individuals to comply with Section 3 requirements. So it's already in the resolution, always in the contract for Section 3. Section 3 requirements requires you to give opportunities to a Section 3 individuals when necessary, when you hire additional services. They don't require you to take something you do yourself on a day-to-day basis and to go out and hire somebody to do it for you. When a service is required, it allows you to do so on Section 3. I asked the staff to send out to give a timeline in which I believe I heard from Commissioner Brooks in the 29th March committee meeting. He'd like to see the timeline. You know, Mr. Jackson gave a pretty good summary of that. Some of the things that's left out a little bit is that we did select 3 firms in order to assist with the Phase 2. This is a competition grant. It is not just you got the money. They did it based on scores, based on points that you get for doing things. And a part of our scoring was our capacity to do the work. And in that capacity, we issued and listed 3 partners. Those partners were Barge Wagner, Sasaki, and Kim Horn. If you look at the second page, you'll notice that the contracts recorded, the top 3 people are partners with HUD, with us on the HUD project, Sasaki, Barge Wagner, and Kim Horn. We've already approved the contract with Barge Wagner. If you look at the lower lock, there's another 7 individual consultants that have been selected by the RFQ process. Every one of those projects, when we went out for an RFQ, included requirements for Section 3 participation. Every one of them. Every one of them came back with that they either found somebody to do Section 3 or was unable to find Section 3. And of that, one of the individual firms is actually a Section 3 firm, which is ACOT. Sasaki actually has on their proposal for the resilience plan, Small Planet. So we are complying with Section 3 requirements on our selections. The Kim Horn actually in their team, when they put together for phase 2, had no idea if there was going to be any electrical work in a project. We didn't know what the projects were. We had to develop projects. We didn't know how many money we was going to get, if anything. Once we received the funding, we looked at the different projects, and Kimberly Horn's project for the project over at Rodney Baber includes a new pavilion, which requires electrical. Since they required to hire somebody, they went out and solicited proposals for that work, and they have on their team Innovative Engineering. Innovative Engineering is a Section 3 firm certified by HUD. So the resolution you have before you right now with Kimberly Horn, they required information, they required subcontracting, they went out and got them a Section 3 person, and they are on there. Innovative Engineering is also a certifiable minority business enterprise. I'm not sure it is certified yet, but it is a certifiable business enterprise for Afro-American firm. We ask you to approve the amendment in front of you. It is for Kimberly Horn, and they are fully compliant with any Section 3 requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Needham. We got an amendment by Commissioner Turner to add Section 3 to this resolution. We got a second by Commissioner Walter Bailey. Now, Commissioners on the board, start with Commissioner Brooks to the amendment. You want to speak to that, Commissioner Brooks?
But, Mr. Chairman, if I could, just a point of order. So, Commissioner Reeves, you were wanting to do that without objection, and I thought Commissioner Reeves had asked for something from the attorney's office, but Mr. Needham, I think, got mixed up and began speaking. So if we could let him get his question answered, then we might. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
General Counsel.
Yeah, General Counsel, if I could just, I need some direction on this, because if we put a requirement now in the resolution that you use this, are we circumventing the bid process? And will it open us up to legal liability on something that was competitively bidded?
Commissioner Carter Gray, Assistant County Attorney. I believe, as Mr. Needham correctly stated, this amendment is subject to Title III under the federal regulations of HUD. They are compliant. They will have to comply in it to put a statement in the resolution saying they will comply with Section 3. Is already in there.
Is it different? Is there a difference between they will comply and you have to use, or is it the same thing?
I would again address, no, if you don't need to subcontract any of the work, you have no requirement that you engage a Section 3 enabled business. However, if you do subcontract work, if you need to, then Section 3 provisions apply, and you must provide those opportunities for that work, both to Section 3 and others.
Which there's a requirement here based upon the grant. It's already happened, and whatever we put in there would just be redundant.
As Mr. Needham implied, yes, I believe it would require us to comply with something we are already complying with and have to comply with.
So I'm going to ask the question of Mr. Needham, Mr. Kennedy. Since it's redundant, what does it matter if they put it in there or not? Do you have any issue with it? Okay, then I will go ahead and I'll support that. No objection.
Thank you, sir. So we got some commissioners on the board. You want to speak to the amendment, commissioners? Commissioner Brooks.
What I wanted from Mr. Needham is some clarification. You indicated that innovative was one of the Section 3, but you wasn't clear on whether or not they were certified.
Mr. Commissioner, Innovative Engineering is a certified Section 3 as per the HUD website, and according to the letter they have written to us saying they are certified Section 3. I have a copy of the HUD website that shows them as a certified Section 3 entity.
Okay.
Now, as far as a minority business enterprise, I am not sure they're certified for that for the county. They are certified as a minority business enterprise for the federal government because they are Afro-American.
Can I bring Ms. Watkins if you come up?
Mr. Commissioner, this is federal dollars. The local ordinance does not apply to any of these funds.
Mr. Watkins?
I did not bring it across that the LOSB and the MWBE requirements in your local ordinance do not apply to the funds as 100% federal government dollars.
Is that true?
That is correct. Their Section 3 requirements, I think, are signed of a stand-in, but it specifically states that local preference is not one of the items that can be considered. So LOSB...
It doesn't have to be considered, but it could be considered.
And initially, these contracts were funded, the $1 million were funded with local funds, which allowed us to encourage that LOSB, to get that LOSB from the partners in the Phase 1 provisions. But now that federal money is involved, they can consider it, but it can't be a requirement.
But we certainly could encourage it.
And I think Section 3 does that, but yes, we certainly do encourage it.
Okay, all right. And small planet work, you spoke about Sasaki. What is the arrangement with that?
Sasaki, that's the next resolution, sir.
Okay, all right. We'll address it under there.
Who you? You done? Okay. Before we move on, I need to get an objection. Was there any objection to the amendment? I think before he said he wanted to object, he had to get some information from the council, so I'm going back. Is there no objection? Commissioner Bailey, question.
As I understand it, Mr. Needham is saying that the last speaker's request has already been satisfied.
Commissioner Bailey, the way I understood the request was that to be sure that people have an opportunity and that Section 3 would be hired when Section 3 is required to be hired. And that has been satisfied with Kimley Horn on this project. They required a subcontract, and they subcontracted with Innovative Engineering for electrical work. Innovative Engineering is a Section 3 firm.
So it would. So what you're saying is that this would be surplusage, the resolution that is.
I don't have any objection to having that on the as an item on the resolution, because if for some reason Innovative Engineering doesn't perform, then you have to have somebody else. Then you would do Section 3.
Can we just have that as a friendly amendment then? No objection. Okay.
There was no objection on the amendment that was brought by Commissioner Turner, and it was seconded by you, Brother Bailey. There was no objection on that. So now we're speaking to the amendment. Commissioner Reeves, you want to go back to the board? Going back to the board, you on?
No, I mean, my thing is, I'm ready to go, but I'm not going to call the question because there's other people in the board.
Okay.
So.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Needham, as we look at this, can you, I'm listening to what you're saying, and so the prime contractor is the one that's been selecting the subcontractors.
They always do, sir.
They always do, but they don't have to.
They have to, on a HUD grant, once they get federal dollars, they must select or get Section 3 full opportunity.
No, the county was giving those HUD dollars. So my question is, they don't have to. You could do the Section 3 piece through the county. That's what I'm asking.
No, sir, I may not. Let me clarify if you don't mind, Mr. Commissioner. Is that Section 3 requires 3% of your funds to go toward Section 3 opportunities on professional services, 10% if you own construction, and it requires the overall project to be 3%, but it also requires every individual subcontract in that contract. It's over $100,000. If they hire someone, they must go to Section 3. See, the county as a whole, we have about 6% Section 3 already as a contract whole. But Kimley Horns, they just got 3. Sasaki right now, they haven't hired any subcontracts after the initial team was put together. So they really haven't included Section 3 in their team to date. But there's many opportunities in the future.
Right, okay. So, out of all of these contracts that just come before this body, about $60 million, have all of them require Section 3, because all of it was federal dollars. I just want to be correct on that.
We have brought before this commission about $3.5 million worth of design contracts for this grant. And of those contracts, their total has been about 6% of it has been Section 3 employees, Section 3 firms.
Okay, so back to my question. I'm following you, but I'm trying to go somewhere. So, have all the contracts that came before us have Section 3 participation that was done by the prime contractor on all of them, or are there still any additional vacancies that you guys don't know about for Section 3?
As Sasaki moves forward with their contract, there may be some items come up that have to do Section 3. As the surveyors begin their surveying on projects, they may have some Section 3 requirements. As individual firms hire individual people during the course of the contract, they have to go Section 3. So there's Section 3 opportunities there for an overall project. And then, like you say, we have a total of about $70 million worth of construction that's going to come before the county commission over the next 2.5 years. All of that will give you Section 3 requirements, all of it. There's a lot of Section 3 opportunities coming forward.
Okay.
Did I answer the question, sir?
You're getting close.
Okay.
But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Baser.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I was just going to try to point out you got a $60 million total grant funding, and you're right. We've only spent about $3 million of that.
Correct.
The votes before us today is another $3 million or so. There's that.
That's probably right. So roughly $6 million total.
So we're still going to have $50+ million coming before us, and I think the administration's got the idea, or we've heard the message loud and clear about what we're looking for. So, thank you. I just want to put in context, and I like the summary chart, but I think it'd be helpful as well if we knew kind of how this piece fits within the overall picture as we go through this process. Thank you.
Commissioner Turner. He stepped out.
All right, I think that we're headed in a good direction here, and for Commissioner Reeves, I am going to call the question, and when I conclude, after I conclude, we had an issue of, I think, Allied Services and their use of top-notch security. And I'm coming back to where we need to go. My understanding is that top-notch security, which is a minority-owned security company, still was never engaged. And I think we're at the point now where that's going back out to bid, and it's probably too late now. I don't know. But I guess the point here is that Commissioner Schaefer says all the time with all deliberate speed. So we understand that you get it. I think that from a cognitive standpoint, we're all there. Everyone envisions what we're trying to accomplish today. Now we just need to accomplish it. And so I don't want the persons who were bold enough to come and bring this issue out to be retaliated against or in any way put on a blacklist and not used going forward on the rest of these projects. So I would want an update, and we'll just figure out a time, maybe it's a month from now, a month and a half, but I want these persons who were here today to get a fair shot and opportunity at what's going on moving forward, and I want to make sure that the subcontractors and whoever is involved are going out and primed, and they're using these businesses here locally, including the persons who were here before us today, because again, in the top-notch security issue, those folks are still not engaged, the African-American owned security company. And we decided this 2 or 3 months ago, and I bumped into the guy who owns the company. He says we're still not on board. So just one example. So again, we're putting some trust into the process, but we want the process to yield results. That's all I have to say, and I call the questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, one of the reasons that Small Planet is on Sasaki's team for the regional plan is because when they made their submission to RFQ, I recommended they contact Small Planet because they had the qualifications in-house that she could take care of that on their behalf. That contract has not come before you yet. We're still in the process of getting that done, but that should be for you very soon.
Commissioner Bailey.
Pass.
Okay. Question's been called on the amendment by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Bailey.
That objection on the main motion.
Okay. On item number 17. Please spare your screen to vote on item number 17. All commissioners voted, please read the tally.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Bailey, Reeves, Brooks, Billingsley, Milton, Rowland, Ford, Baser, Jones, Chisholm, Turner, Schaefer, and Chairman Burgess. We have 13 aye votes.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 18 comes from Commissioner Turner's Committee on Public Works. 18, resolution approving amendment number 1 to the contract between Shelby County Government and Sasaki Associates, Inc. for various National Disaster Resilience Grant Fund design projects. This item requires expenditure of FY 2017 federal grant funds in the amount of $1,739,525 for a total contract amount of $1,834,525, sponsored by Commissioner Van Turner, sent down without recommendation at April 12, 2017 committee meeting.
Commissioner Turner, can I get a report?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That item was sit down without a recommendation.
Okay, we got a move by Commissioner Bailey, second by Commissioner Turner. Commissioner Turner.
I want the same amendment for this resolution as well, to be sure we include section 3. The same section 3 language in 17, I want in 18, and I would like an update in a month's time to see what's going on with the subcontractor.
Can I get a second on that? Second by Commissioner Brooks. So we have one person want to speak on this again? Ms. Banks.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, for clarification, the purpose that's included in the law is that financial assistance shall, to the greatest extent feasible, be directed to Section 3 businesses and residents. It didn't say if we have a contract or may or can. It said shall. That's in the very first paragraph of the section. The second thing is, there are 4 activities under this HUD grant. 4. We are included, Small Planet Works is included under the Regional Resilience Plan contract, and that is about to come up. But there are the other 3 activities, South Cypress Creek, Big River, and Big Wolf Creek, are also contracts, and for every contract or amendment under these activities, greater than $200,000, there shall be a Section 3 business concern included in the contract. It's not may or can, or if they have subcontracting opportunities that they want to do. The purpose of the law says shall. You have a resident expert here in Mr. Vasquez, if you'd like to ask him. And so, yes, we are in discussions with Sasaki on being on the South Cypress Creek opportunity. And so we just haven't completed the negotiations, but we are in discussion with the scope of work. So.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Okay, we'll go back to the board. Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to refer this back to committee based on the fact that no arrangements have been made between Sasaki and Small Planet Works. Until we get that cleared up, I want to move it back to committee.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Rowland. Did this be referred back to committee? Any objection on that?
I'd like to ask a question before.
Commissioner Billingsley.
Can we hear from Mr. Needham how sending this back committee could impact us?
Mr. Director Needham.
Mr. Chairman, like I've mentioned, the 3 contracts with HUD, with Barge Wagner, Sasaki, and Kimley Horn, they're partners in the HUD contract. The grant was scored based on the capacity we have to provide. We were informed after we got the contract, any change you make to what you have, HUD will reevaluate and rescore the program. If it's rescored, it's a possibility you could lose your grant totally. So I really ask the commission to proceed on and pass this resolution I'll ask the county attorney again to inform, to let you know whether or not Sasaki is fulfilling the Section 3 requirements to meet HUD requirements.
Mr. Chairman.
They're not required to hire somebody. They're required to give Section 3 an opportunity. There is no guarantee of a project. So I'd like the county attorney to do that, if you don't mind, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Billingsley.
Mr. Chairman, since I wanted to hear that explanation, I'm clearly going to object after hearing from Mr. Needham. I think we're getting out of bounds here, and I'm all for due diligence, but I think we're going in dangerous waters, and I don't even personally appreciate individual contractors coming and lobbying before this body. I think we're out of order the way this is going. I object.
Thank you. Okay, second by Commissioner Reeves. I see Commissioner Turner, you on the board? Have you already spoken?
You know, I asked for the amendment at first, so I had a motion that was seconded to include
To add
Section 3
Section
language. Was that passed without objection?
It was by Commissioner Brooks.
Okay, all right. So we're now on whether or not we send it back to him, not it. And we got to vote on it. I'm fine. It's been objected to, so let's take a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Rowland.
So we're taking a very bad risk and by deferring this.
We are required, because of our contract with HUD, if there's a change in any point of points that was scored, which is capacity, approach, funding, those type of things, to notify HUD. And they do have the opportunity. They were told us they got to rescore. And remember, we was one of 13 that received the money. We got 80 points. There were people who got 78 points who got 0. And they're complaining because they didn't get anything. If we lose a point or two, we'll see. What HUD will make a decision, and I can't say they'll do whatever, but I don't like taking chances when I'm on this type of competition. I really don't.
Let me tell you where I sit, folks. I seconded this for Commissioner Brooks because it was very important to you, Commissioner Brooks. But I go back to what Tom said and what Commissioner Baser said, that there's going to still be ample money out there in this $50 million we have left. We went by the rules. And folks, I'm coming to you today because this resiliency grant affects my district more than anybody, folks. Millington has flooded 3 times. We're talking about people out of their houses, people left with nothing. This grant can correct that. We can go from being flood city back to flag city again. This is, you know, and I seconded this, Commissioner Brooks, because of I knew that it was important to you. But I'm begging with you today, let's go ahead and vote on this with Commissioner Turner's language in it.
To add to Section 3.
Yeah, right. Add Section 3 in there and just let this go and work diligently from now on ahead. This is something that we can't play with, folks. I mean, you can ask any of the news media here that if you've ever had to deal with a flood, I actually, during the election, my first election, on election day, I was dealing with a flood because that was more important than getting myself elected, okay? And I'm going to beg y'all to support this grant here. And look, I love you to death, Commissioner Brooks. I'm going to withdraw my second on the referral. And I don't want you to take this personally. But when he says that it could affect us to where we couldn't get this grant, it would devastate my area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Brooks.
Let me respond to that. Through his presentation, Mr. Neal's presentation, he first of all said that there was some discussion between Sarsaski and Small Planet Works. Then it came out that no arrangement has been made. If in fact when it's made, how does it impact the change in the proposal going to HUD? If they agree to it, then it's still a change. So all we're talking about is making sure that we follow through on the commitment or agreement or arrangement that between Sasaki and Small Planet Works. That's what we're about. I'm not against the whole thing. We just want to make sure that we follow through on what we're supposed to do.
Commissioner,
Power Planet Works is a certified Section 3 contractor. At this point, based on your presentation, officially, they have not certified or have approved a Section 3 contractor.
Mr. Commissioner, I believe you heard the county attorney say that the only time you have to do a Section 3 contractor is when you, the prime, decide that you need to subcontract something out. Sasaki does not need to subcontract out anything right now because they do everything internally. Mr. Jackson's a good landscape architect. I've been running across him, working with him for 25 years, John, at least. You have a lot of work of that nature. But Sasaki is a landscape architect, and they are not subcontracting it out now. As they move on with the project, they may have some needs for other stuff in the future for this contract. And when that happens, then every Section 3 will be given opportunity.
Yeah, but are you saying that it will require modification going back to HUD? That's the issue.
They will not.
But you're saying if we don't approve it today?
Now, I'm saying, sir, that if you do not, if Sasaki, who is a partner with HUD, is not approved as a contract by the commission, then I have to tell HUD, Sasaki hasn't got a contract. Then we lose our capacity to do the job.
What's the timeline for that?
I'll have to know if I'm seeing you turn it down.
When?
As soon as you turn it down today.
No, we're pushing for referral. We're not pushing to turn it down.
You know.
We're not, so let's get it straight. We're pushing for referral, not voting it down.
I cannot proceed with the project at all until all three partners are in place. I cannot. I cannot risk county funds for other people to get forward until all three partners are approved.
Mr. Rowland, I empathize with you. It is not personal with me. It's making sure that we got a process that's going to work and work fairly. Okay? I want to be clear on that.
So Commissioner Brooks, on the referral, since Commissioner Rowland withdrew, can we get a second on the referral back to committee? Get a second on the referral to go
I
back to
think it
committee.
deserves a vote. I second it. And I have a question, point of order. If we would approve this contract today for the next commission meeting, is there any adjustment that can be done before we finalize the minutes?
You could, before, let's say, no, actually, if this is adopted, then a motion to reconsider can only be brought before we adjourn today. It cannot be brought before the approval of the minutes to the next meeting. You can only do a motion to reconsider if something was killed at this meeting.
So if I understand this, Sasaki is in negotiations with Small Planet.
To my knowledge, Commissioner, Sasaki is not negotiating with anyone for any subcontract work.
So let me ask this, so what guarantee do we have going forward that MWBE's locally owned small businesses are going to be used going forward?
Mr. Commissioner, I can't.
Also Section 3.
Section 3 I can enforce because it's a federal regulation. I can enforce that with them. But I can't enforce MWBE because of federal dollars. But if they do not comply with Section 3 requirements when they hire somebody, they are in violation of the contract. And if they're in violation of the contract with the county, we can terminate that contract. That's what we can do.
Okay. And so when can we bring this back for an update as far as how the subcontracting is going? About a month and a half. Is there going to be some activity a month from now?
Presently, we have our kickoff meeting scheduled for April 28th for all Microsofts to come in at one time. One of the agenda items on that is to assure every one of those guys or ladies or firms understand the Section 3 requirements and contract. We want to be sure they understand that, so that when they do hire somebody, if Sasaki or the Dahoff Thomas and Dawes, if their staff is not enough to do the work that's there, and they have to hire an individual person, they have to give no amount of income opportunity to an individual person who makes less than $40,000 a year. Those are requirements of Section 3. We require Section 3 reports from every one of our consultants every quarter. All right. Every quarter require. Did you hire somebody? Who did you go by? What did you do?
And so you indicated that if we were to send this back to committee, the whole deal is blown up, and you got to send the money back.
I will have to cancel my April 28th meeting. I cannot give anybody notice to proceed, and then we'll have to wait until the commission acts, at the next commission meeting, and then we'll have to restart, and we'll lose about 2 months. And at this stage, after we were a year with HUD getting the contract, and now we're 3 months into this year with environmental issues on some of these projects, being able to get the money spent by the end of the contract could be a problem.
Is our next committee date April 26th, Mr. Chairman?
It's May 3rd.
May 3rd?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I still second it. If you want to still vote on it, Commissioner Brooks, I second.
I would like Ms. Watkins to come to the mic.
Ms. Watkins?
Ms. Watkins, I've had conversation with you regarding this process. Could you elaborate on communication with Sasaki?
I have not communicated with Sasaki at this point, Mr. Commissioner, but I have communicated with Ms. Banks. Ms. Banks informed me that Sasaki's representatives are speaking with her. She gave me an email which indicated that they are communicating with her, but the gentleman that she needs to communicate with is now in China. And she stated to me that he promised her a call back, which should have been on Friday, but he did not. So she is now in the process of trying to communicate with that gentleman, and when she gets in touch with him, she will put me in touch with him, and I may report back to this body if in fact an arrangement can be reached between the two companies.
No, my concern is Mr. Needham is going back and forth. First he said he's going to communicate and make sure all three have Section 3 contractors, but yet this company at this point, as of this date, have not certified a Section 3 contractor as part of the bid. Am I correct?
That's my understanding, that they do not have a Section 3 contractor. Sasaki does not.
So, to my colleagues, until we can reach some arrangement, I mean, this could be handled this week. Today is Monday. For the next 3 days, some arrangements could be worked out, or some communications can be made with this company to determine what direction they're going with in terms of Section 3.
Well, depending on what the body does today, Mr. Commissioner, I spoke with Ms. Banks, and she is going to we start having these conversations, because of our holiday, we start having these conversations about those exact communications this morning. She is going to put me in contact with the office of Sasaki, and at the very least, put me in touch with the gentleman she's trying to reach with his administrative assistant.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners, on the referral by Commissioner Brooks, seconded by Commissioner Turner. Any commissioners want to speak on the referral that's on the board now? Commissioner Baser.
Okay, this is a big project, as I brought up earlier, $60 million, and I didn't really get into it too much because of time, and we're, kind of respectful of our time here, but at the same time, I think it needs to be said that this is a big project. It's $60 million. It's federal grant money. It's money that's going to pump into our economy. It's money that's probably mostly going into Terry Rowan's district, because that's probably where a lot of the work's going to be done. But that's $60 million. And I have to defer somewhat to Mr. Needham. He's very knowledgeable about these kind of things. And if he's seeing the risk of losing it, I'm not willing to gamble $60 million over a $1.5 million contract. And I'm not going to support deferring this anymore, because I've already deferred it once. And I can agree to disagree with my fellow commissioners, but on this particular issue, I'm a little bit passionate. I think, obviously we've tried to tell the administration time and time again that we want to see more minority businesses, and I'm all for that. But at the same time, we got to move the peanut forward. We got to move the ball down the field. and this is $60 million. It's going to pump up our economy. It's going to help us. I can't see saying no to that today and jeopardizing the whole $60 million over one piece of the contract. Thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you very much. Let me just clarify something. Mr. Needham, are we at risk of losing this if I understand we'd be at risk of losing if we voted it down, but are you saying indeed that we'd be at risk of losing it if we merely defer?
Madam Commissioner, we have referred this back to committee twice. And when it goes back to committee, it refers back to here again without recommendation. And we're bouncing it back and forth, and I've really requested you to turn it down or approve it.
Right, but that wasn't, thank you, but that wasn't my question. My question was...
proceed, Commissioner, without this contract in place. Everything will stop.
But my question was, are we at risk of losing the money if we defer it?
I do not see anything happening between now and the committee meeting that will put a Section 3 small planet project on Sasaki's team. So I don't think anything's going to change between now and the committee meeting.
Thank you, and respectfully, I know you're trying to push your point, but that wasn't my question. Third time now.
Lose it. We will not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, wait a minute, I'm not done. I'm sorry. That's right. We wouldn't lose it. So let's just make sure that we're clear on that, because none of us want to lose it. But let's really know the facts, okay? And we do need to move forward, right? I think one of the reasons we're seeing Mr. Needham be frustrated is because we have been doing the song and dance back and forth, right? Okay, so I mean, let's be honest about what we're doing also. Here, I want to just make an analogy here. One of the reasons that I think we're having heartburn about this is we're sort of asked to be rubber stampers again, right? This is all being done, right? It's all being done, kind of, it's put in place. Those things are these are the people we've selected, right, with the mysterious scoring sheets, okay? It's all being done, and then it's being sent down to us, and then our job is either vote for it the way we've got it, or you lose the money, right? And we put Commissioner Rowland's district in jeopardy. So, I mean, I'm just bringing this up because I'm seeing this ongoing angst and this ongoing pain. I'm going to vote to move this forward today, but I see ongoing problems with this, okay? It's the same thing. We just had this before where, we got it approved by these folks before it ever came to you, but you got to go only with our plan or it's not going to go forward. There's something that we need to fix in our system because what we're doing isn't working. And so I'm not going to hold this up today, but I think you get my point, okay? I don't like smoke and mirrors, and I don't like people making it sound as if we're going to lose it when we really aren't. I don't like being a rubber stamp. I refuse to be a rubber stamp. Okay? I also don't want to get in the way of a very necessary storm mitigation thing that I want to give this department credit for going at it, swinging hard, and bringing it home. So I'm kind of reluctantly going to support this, but I mean, know my heartburn, y'all.
Commissioner Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me get this straight. The only time a company has to use Section 3 is if they use a subcontractor.
If they
just say yes or no.
It's two things. These commissioners don't mind. One, if they use a contractor, other is they actually hire a person in their firm.
All right, okay. So, Asaki is saying that they can do the job without doing that. That's the reason why they don't have to adhere to the Section 3.
Based on the scope of work they have now and before the projects are developed, that's what they're saying. As the project is developed, opportunities do exist, because this design process is going to take about a year and a half. So opportunities will exist. When they exist, they will go to Section 3.
Okay. But we're just talking about this portion of it right now.
Today, where we sit, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we're adding the language that Commissioner Turner
Section
said.
3.
So if is this the will of this body? Are we trying to force Asaki to hire a subcontractor? Is that, well, then that's what this body is saying. Because, I mean, if Asaki's gonna do the work and don't need a subcontractor, they're saying, we're gonna do this work. Okay? Then you can't force them to use a subcontractor, can you?
No, sir, you cannot. But when they choose to do so, they have to do Section 3.
But when they choose to use a subcontractor, folks, I'm just telling you, I mean, I'm just begging y'all, if you've never seen a bad flood, bear with me on this. When we started the MWBE program, I was the 7th vote, okay, that got us to that point. I was the chairman when we brought this in, and I'm going to see it to the end. But this ain't part of that fight, folks. This one item here is not part of that fight. Because like Commissioner Baser stated, we've got 50 million more, or actually 54 million more dollars in grants coming. That gives ample. Now, if Asaki takes, if it's not what they can do and they have to hire somebody, then they have to adhere to the Section 3. So I really don't see the argument here. But I'll do what the body wants to do. But all I'm saying, folks, if you ever, I tell you what, get on your YouTube tonight and just pull up Millington Flood if you want to see something pitiful. So I'll go along with the body, but I really wish we could dispose of this today. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Commissioner Rowland. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I've had flooding in my district too, so, I do understand, and Commissioner Ford has had it in his. And so, and you've had it in yours, and some has come over into, yours, Commissioner Reeves. You know, I'm sitting here, and it seemed like to me, and I know we said, 50-something additional millions are coming. What was the total amount of all of this stuff, Mr. Needham?
The total request for the grant was 74 million, and we awarded 60 million. We have about $15 million worth of matching funds locally, so we'll be awarding contracts total when it's all said and done to about $75 million.
Right, and so over the past 30 days, because all of these contracts are for 5 years, right?
All the money must be spent before September 30th, 2021.
Okay, so 2017, so it's 4 years, and all has to be spent. But, right, and so we've already did, if you do 4 years, then you probably total up all the contracts that we've already approved, that you say this one is tied to all of that. We've already spent somewhere close to 50-something million. Would you, over the length of the contract?
Approved so far, you approved about $3 million worth of contract.
For the resilient grants?
Yes, sir. For the consultants, that's all you've approved is about $3 million for contracts for design. We've approved no contracts at all for construction. Nothing's gone out. It'll be 18 months before a construction project goes out, if we're lucky.
Okay. All right.
You done, Commissioner Jones?
I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Billingsley.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to go on the record because I'm not sure the will of the body, and I know Commissioner Rowland wants the best for his community, but I would not go with the will of the body if it's not going to help Millington. We should be celebrating the $60 million grant. As someone who's in fundraising and understand grants, I've been doing grants since I was 16 years old. To receive a $60 million grant for this community is unbelievable. And in January of 2016, this body went around the room about 3 different times congratulating Mr. Needham, congratulating the mayor and the resiliency committee that he put together. We went around and round and round saying how wonderful this was, not just for Millington, but also restoration efforts in Raleigh and Fraser, to Rodney Baber and Kennedy Park, South Cypress Creek, and the Weaver Park developments, and a regional resiliency plan in general for Shelby County. I'm someone who rose on the MWBE programs and LSP programs, even when it was uncomfortable for me and I couldn't get even other people to support me at times. So I understand the complaints of the citizens and business leaders that arose here today, but I also celebrated and trusted Mr. Needham, as well as the Department of Public Works, Office of Sustainability, Department of Public Works, Department of Housing, Engineering, and Office of Preparedness when we were lucky enough to get this $60 million grant that was supposed to be expended over 3 years. So today, this commissioner can only speak for himself, but I will wholeheartedly be supporting this grant and its continued success. I think we're getting in the weeds, and I can only control my vote, but I'll be on the record supporting this grant. I'm grateful for this grant, and I hope we get many more grants like this. This is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be clear on the record that I'm in support of the grant. That's not the issue with me. It's the process. We got to ensure there's a process that we follow and go through, and that there's no retaliation as a result of someone raising the concerns and issues regarding our process and procedures. And that appears to be the case. So all I'm asking for is a referral to allow a timely response from Sosonski regarding this particular issue, and we move on. That's all I'm asking for. We would have had the response today. Apparently, they were out of the country, the person who has responsibility for it. So that's where I am.
Mr. Commissioner, the president of Sosaki has been back in office, had been back in his office for 2 weeks. He's not in China. He's not there. He's been in his office for the last 2 weeks.
Have you been in contact with him?
Pardon?
Have you been in contact with him?
I had an email with him yesterday along the lines of the 20th of September meeting is having, the fact that we're trying to set me up on the 27th in order to do some other work. I've had some contact with him as far as the meeting is concerned. Yes, I have. And Sosaki is meeting the requirements of Section 3. If they hire somebody, they will hire a Section 3 employee, a person, period. They will meet the requirements.
But you've been back and forth in this conversation, that they were in conversation, that they were workers with Small Planet. Then you come back and say that they were.
I never told them they do Small Planet. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I would have recommended they use Small Planets for the resilience plan. Because that's what they was negotiating. The resilience plan has not come to you yet. Small Planet is on that team for resilience plan. And it will come to you hopefully the next commission meeting. And Small Planet is on there for 3% of the work.
How do you know that?
Because I have in a proposal from them, and Small Planet has told you that themselves 2 times a day. They are on that team. You go to their website, and you look at their website. They show on their website that they're working on that project. So they are on Sosaki's team for that work. When Sosaki hires somebody, they will meet Section 3 requirements. Period.
Commissioner Brooks.
Ms. Watkins, can you address the concerns that I have?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, could you explain the process we're working with, trying to get some response back from?
The information that I received, sir, was from Ms. Banks, and it was an email, and I believe where. Mr. Commissioner, I have an email from Mr. Mark Dawson to Ms. Janice Banks, and it says, hello, it says, Janice, hello and nice to hear from you. I am traveling and have very limited time today. I'm back in the office tomorrow, so perhaps we can talk. This is dated Thursday, April 13th. So that's, but of course, I received this email from Ms. Banks. When I talked to Mr. Needham, I mean, I guess it's that argument, because I talked with Mr. Needham last week, and his concern to me was that whether or not Small Planet Works would be on the project, and I told him, sir, I understand that we can't make them be on any project, but to afford them the opportunity to be on there. And his assurance, as he stated today, is that if in fact they needed a subcontractor, they would have one. But this is the email from the gentleman from Sasaki, that he was out of the office and he would be in contact with Ms. Banks.
And at this point, there's been no communication back to Ms. Banks?
According to Ms. Banks, no, sir, there has not.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Brooks. Okay, Commissioner Chisholm, Bailey, and Milton. Commissioner Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be brief. We've gone through this. I was with Chairman Rowland out in Millington when the floods were there. Once again, here it wasn't that long ago, we were congratulating ourselves and high-fiving that we got this. I don't see that we need to put this off. I see that we need to have more diligence. Commissioner Bailey and I talked, about the LSB. I didn't think it had enough teeth. They said, what are your problems with it? I didn't think it had enough teeth then. It doesn't have enough teeth now. But we can't hold this up because of the situation that we're in right now. We've got to, we've been positioned to do this and alleviate some of the concerns of some of the citizens of Shelby County. Do we need to be diligent with the LSO? Yes. Yes, we do. We really do. But right now, today, I see nothing everything that was supposed to be done from the bid itself and how it was handled has been done. Director Needham's answered all the questions of why it was like it was and who's participating. And now we're hearing, it looks like smoke and mirrors, and we've gotten off the road into the ditch. So I'm going to be supporting this. I apologize for how long this has taken. I didn't mean to be so drawn out, but Mr. Chairman, I will be supporting this today.
Okay, Commissioner Chisholm. Commissioner Bailey. Commissioner Bailey. Cut your microphone.
Share my thoughts with Commissioner Brooks that Sasaki is an architectural design firm itself, and what I'm hearing from Mr. Needham is that sort of work that they're going to do to undertake themselves primarily because they don't need to bring anybody else on board. Am I hearing you correctly?
Needham.
Personally, the scope of work, as they understand it, they can do their work internally with their own staff. Yes, sir.
So, but you're telling us, are you giving us of course you can't give us assurance, so I'm not going to ask you that. I was about to say you can't give us any assurance, so I'm not going to ask you that.
I can give you one assurance, Commissioner. I can assure you that if they have to go any subcontract at all, they will consider Section 3 as a subcontract.
But then,
I can assure that to you, because I got control of that with the approval or disapproval of the mayor can terminate that contract. So we got that.
will you assure us of that?
Absolutely. You know, Commissioner, on the 28th of April, if I can get this contract approved, we have all our consultants there. A part of our presentation to our consultants is our Section 3 and contractual requirements. I would invite any of the commissioners who would like to come and listen to that, have questions for the consultants. We have it with the code enforcement. You know, be welcome to come in and be a part of that presentation, so you can see we're serious. One of our consultants, they got to follow the rules. They got to follow them.
Well, I think as a practical matter, it seems to me to make as much as passionately as we are committed to minority and participation, as a practical matter, we don't see that in the cards at this level anyway, because as you point out, Sasaki is going to do its own work and internally pay its own folks and not commission any of it out of contracts. So, and again, it makes sense not to even put the grant at risk. So, I think you made for my purpose, you made a plausible argument as why we ought to proceed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Bailey. Commissioner Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's quite clear, Mr. Neal, frustration on this situation. I can see it. I can see it in his face, even though he does a good job. Though he does a good job of trying to control it. I would ask him, though, to appreciate the fact of African Americans and white women who have waited decades to be treated fairly, who have seen themselves be overlooked, ignored, and disregarded on these contracts. So, with all due respect, your short period of time of frustration is of no significance to me. What is significant is that we do what we're here for. The MWBs are the law of the land. We're going to push it. We're going to push it, and this is not, what you're seeing here is only a small sample of what's going to continue to happen. It's an effort to make sure that we correct what has not been occurring. And that is our responsibility. And I don't care if I sit here at 3 o'clock. You can say, I'll sit here at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. I have no concern whatsoever. And I don't care if we have to hold contracts back. We're going to correct this problem. This is the direction we're moving in. And we're trying to let everyone know this is the way it's going to be. And we're trying to do it in a way that will hopefully bring all of us on board. We've heard the comments of, you have my personal promise, it's a good faith, all these statements, but nothing changed. We're going to change it. And it's going to happen right here. So we just will get used to it. But as far as to my fellow commissioner, Roland, who I have a great deal of respect for, who I think has stood with us on these issues, there is no way whatsoever I'm going to allow those funds that go to his district to be lost. It's just not going to happen. It's needed and it's deserved. So I am willing to support this, but you need to understand where we're going with this. And Commissioner Schaefer had to rush you to get you to say what, the basic fact was that this wouldn't be jeopardized. And that's why I need honesty from you guys. I don't need double talk. I need honesty, and I will work with you as honestly as I possibly can. I know you're doing your jobs, and I respect each and every one of you. I truly do. But we've got to make this work, and we all got to be on the same side. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner Milton. Commissioner Baser.
This is on the deferral still?
Yes, this is on the deferral to May the 3rd. It was seconded by Commissioner Turner on the deferral.
I've already kind of said publicly that I'm not for it.
I'm sorry.
If I can defer, if I can persuade anyone else, this has been to committee 3 times. Okay. And while candidly, I'm not going to throw any stones here, but if you haven't been to the committee for one of those 3 times, and you still haven't, and you want to send it back because you haven't heard it before committee, I think that you should probably, that's not an excuse. And I think as a commission, I'm concerned about the situation where it seems we're trying to steer contracts to certain people, where people come down here and they complain that we feel like, oh, we have to do something for them. And, I think in this situation, we've got, the director here has the kickoff on the April 28th. We've got 2 of the 3 contracts approved. Let's just go and get this third one approved so we can get moving on the $60 million opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Basil. Commissioner Brooks.
Let me be clear to my colleague. It's not about, I've been in the committee meeting. It's about a request for information, which has not been obtained. So let's be clear on that record. All right? I've been in the committee meetings. What I've asked for was an additional request for information. And that's what I want. And I think you ought to give me that.